Hey, welcome to the DVD commentary for Treehouse of Horror 2. This is Matt Groening.
I'm Al Jean. I was one of the showrunners for the episode.
This is Mike Reese. I was a showrunner, too.
This is Jim Reardon. I directed this episode.
Dan Castellaneta, the actor, voice of Homer.
And this is Jeff Martin. I was one of the writers when we did this episode.
So please, tuck in your children and... Well, if you didn't listen to me last time, you're not going to now. Enjoy the show.
I can say this is the first year we did the spooky credits and the names of the Halloween show. I wanted to do it because we get those EC comics we used to see as kids where, you'd have a writer or an artist named Creepy Jack Kamen, and we thought it'd be self-indulgent to put our own names that way.
And it's become sort of a burden every year.
These jokes were much easier the first time,
Yes.
these tombstone jokes.
Almost everything about the Halloween show started off fun and has become a real backbreaker with every succeeding year. Got to think of new names. We finally abandoned the gruesome names. We abandoned the funny tombstones.
We stopped making jokes in the show.
And we also stopped warning people to send their kids to bed because no one was listening to the warnings anyway.
Yeah.
And the later Halloween episodes have gotten a lot gorier and more gruesome, along with the culture, I might add.
Well, it's funny, David Merkin would say to me now, the point of the Halloween show is always to really, gross out the audience. And I said, it is? I didn't know that.
I thought Jim Reardon had the best scary name, though, Jim Rondo Reardon.
Well, it's from Rondo Hatton, who was the only movie star who had acromegaly.
So far.
So far. You'd have to actually back up a little bit now, but if you look in the opening credits, so you can see Charlie Brown and his friends running by the house with his ghost costume with 20 holes in it.
You've got a thing about those Charlie Brown things, don't
Let's
you?
not bring up my sordid past.
One thing that happened in this Halloween show, too, was this was the episode where we decided whether we would put Kang and Kodos in again. And, there was a debate, should we make this a tradition? And then, yes, it did become one.
As Hank Azaria faking Turkish there.
Live in a place like this.
Dad, that's Monaco.
I can do that, but I don't wanna.
Yeah, what is this thing?
This first episode, obviously, is a satire of the monkey's paw, an old horror story. We get the inspiration for these Halloween segments from a number of areas, old, Roald Dahl-type stories, scary movies like The Shining. There's been a trend lately where we try to think of something that's our own conceit, where it's not just a parody or something, a spoof, as it were.
Ooh, Homer, where did you get that ugly thing?
Well, it's that little shop right over there. On your way, it was over there.
You'll be sorry.
I think we've done that joke about 4 times in the course of the series.
It's a bad loop line, too. The guy's mouth is not moving.
Well, I'm sure nobody noticed.
Of course, this is from with Midnight Express.
Yep.
Yeah.
Especially this episode, I think, has more movie references than even the most egregious Simpsons. It just has a million of them, and you'll see in the second segment they come 3 and 4 deep.
I think that last thing was ironic, too, because it's Arab security stopping a U.S. terror.
Lay count on me. That monkey's paw is going to make our dreams come true.
Now, when we were doing this story, Sam Simon wanted the fingers to go down so that only the middle finger would be up after 3 wishes. It was a daring thing. We sort of fought him on it, partly because if you'd animated it, you couldn't get out of it because Fox wouldn't have seen it till the show was fully animated and in color, and then we'd be stuck with it. I'm sure they wouldn't want to show it, although now they'd want to do a whole show around the middle finger.
No, actually, to tell you the truth, we're still having trouble. We wanted to do something where you see the middle finger digitally blurred, and they're saying even that would horrify the Fox audience.
Fox, they have the very strange battles. Like when we want to intentionally bleep an episode, have Bart say something that we bleep out as if it's been censored, they freak out. They won't let you do that because they go, oh, it looks like we let this through and then had to bleep it at the last minute.
Yeah, if you say a 4-letter word and just want to leave the F or something, they won't do it. They've got to make sure that every letter is obliterated.
Man smart.
The woman is smarter.
Man smart.
The woman is.
Man, this thing's really getting out of hand.
Is this the first time it's a self-referential satire? Because Simpsons has now become so part of the culture.
Pretty much.
I
parody.
think so,
It was
yeah.
really fun to
Dancing
do. I think
Homer
we were
where
kind of
Marge
heading off the backlash that was about to come.
In Dancing Homer, there was one where Marge said Simpson on a T-shirt. I don't think I'd ever see the day. That billboard, I think, was a satire on an actual Fox billboard where they had Bart and they had different slogans every day, on the order of things like...
Watch Fox.
Well, at first we were writing clever things for Bart to say every day. They would change the billboard every day, and then it started being "Happy Birthday" to Fox executives when you drove on the lot. And finally, we got so fed up with it. Do you recall that somebody
it was
increased
Beatty
productivity, man?
Yeah, John Beatty came up with increased productivity, man, which they put on the billboard.
And Jim Brooks.
First thing you see when you enter Fox
when you enter
Studios,
Fox.
right?
And then Jim Brooks drove on the lot. It was infuriating because he thought it was real.
So then they took that down, but they left just the man, which was the funniest thing to me.
But I remember at this time, though, people were starting to say, like, Ren and Stimpy in, The Simpsons out. So we're trying to head it off a little.
Kang and Kodos, by the way, they're pretty much lifted off of the cover of an old EC comic that we just happen to have laying around the office.
Really? I didn't know that. Huh.
Yeah, we had a few EC comics, and they were pretty much on the cover of some shock suspense stories.
Jim, were you the first one to animate Kang and Kodos?
Well, they were in the first Halloween show, which was directed by 3 different directors. They each did a different act.
I think Rich did him.
I was always amazed because they were animated with the constant drooling. And I thought, oh, that's too hard for you guys. It's just going to get,
Oh, well, that part is actually easy. You just write on the sheet, continue drooling to end of scene.
But I love it now that they drool all the time.
And I don't want any zombie turkeys. I don't want to turn into a turkey myself. And I don't want.
Yeah, so here we have only the index finger up.
Hey!
It's a nice effect.
Not bad. Nice hot mustard. Good bread. Turkey's a little dry.
Weren't the names for Kang and Kodos from Star Trek?
That may be, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's Dan and Harry Shearer are the voices. And it's a lot like Itchy and Scratchy or Rod and Todd Flanders. We can never remember which is which.
Yeah, I think it's established now that I'm Kang and Harry's Kodos.
That was a bitter fight.
Dang, I lost that bet.
Have you thought through backstories for the characters?
Yes. Up to 1 million years.
I think we had one of them in a dress once.
Well,
too.
we did have my sister Kodos.
Yes, I'm
his
his sister,
Right?
Kang.
Right.
Or Kodos. No, I'm Kodos.
See?
Wait a minute, I'm Kodos. No, this is true. I'm Kodos. Yes. That's right. Sister Kodos.
Al, is this the Halloween show that had like 85 loop lines in it, or was that next year's?
I do recall
that
a few loop lines in this.
I can see them every few seconds here, but I was just curious.
That was the next one.
Especially at the end of this one, I remember.
So big it will destroy them all.
What I can tell you about this is where Sam said, it's funny if they're laughing and you really extend it on and on and on. And then we found the show was often short, so we would even extend it further than was possibly funny just to make it fill.
I wish I had a monkey's paw.
See, that's a loop line. I can't remember what the original ending was, but I remember I had to come in and loop that new line.
One of the castle was added at the last minute. So if you look at the close-up of Homer, you can still see Flanders' old house on the right side of the screen.
Really?
Yeah.
It's the Halloween shows in general. I was talking about how hard they are to do, and it's usually the first thing we do of the year, the way we schedule things. That it burns out the writers early, burns out the animators early.
Well, that's why we started switching them and making them holdovers, so we could have a little more time to finish them.
And that's it. And we also, I know they go through just a tremendous amount of last-minute changes. They have more rewrites and more loop lines than most.
Yeah, and they also, don't really read that well at the table because a lot of it depends on visual humor. You really never see how they're going to turn out till the very end.
Yeah, people just love them, and they're so hard.
So this segment is based on a segment from the Twilight Zone movie, which was based on a segment from the Twilight Zone series, which was based on a short story.
But, of course, the dog is from the remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yeah.
Quite a twist, huh?
And this is Harry.
That's a pretty
Shearer
good Harry doing Rod Serling.
It was funny. I remember we just assigned it to him, and we said, I hope he can do all right with it. And I thought it was just dead on.
Yeah.
Dan, do you do Rod Serling?
Yes. Submitted for your approval.
That's a great design.
Yes.
That's good.
Who did that, Jim?
Probably Dale. Dale Hendrickson was the lead character designer at that time. Halloween shows are the toughest on the designers because there's so little stock used in them, and that there's always twice as many things to be designed as a normal show.
The box of cereal says only sugar has more sugar, but you really can't read it.
I think that was when we actually used, like in Bart the Murderer, it was like a reused design or something. Yeah,
box of cereal.
Billy Mumy was the actor who played Bart's character in this segment in the Twilight Zone.
Did Bill Mumy subsequently do a voice for our show, or am I?
I think he did. He also appeared in the movie, the Twilight Zone movie.
Yeah, he
segment,
appeared in the film
of this.
As was Nancy Cartwright. She appears in this
Nancy
segment
Cartwright
of the
was
Twilight
in
Zone movie.
The Twilight Zone the
She's
movie.
The girl
Yes.
with,
She gets trapped in a cartoon.
She actually gets trapped in a cartoon.
Unlike her
gets
real
sent to
life.
cartoon land.
America was now discovered in 1942 by
Bonerland. That
One
was
of my favorite
a
jokes.
That was a
censor fight.
But we won, man.
Every fifth grader in America was made happy by that.
Principal Skinner. Bart, this one's for you. Hello, my baby. Hello.
This wouldn't be a public domain song, would it?
Or owned by Fox.
You would think in our 14th year we'd be not so worried about these budget problems, but we're just using a Rocky version of the Rocky theme that didn't cost anything for the same reason.
Big butt, and my butt smells, and I like to kiss my own butt.
This is a Schwartzwalder joke, this twist on the Bart calling Moe line.
And Hank Azaria hated to do this line. He hated, and, our cast, there's always a dream. They never have any problem, but he's going, gee, this is really too much.
Hello, my honey. Hello, my ragtime. It's double time now.
I love school.
Mine, come on, make it, please, please, please.
I want to watch Krusty.
Shut up, boy.
This is where Harry does his Vince Scully impression.
Which is also uncanny, yeah.
Have anyone ever heard of Mr. Scully has heard it? Or?
I believe he has. Usually it's like imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Although now when we show football, we usually have Harry does a Keith Jackson, too, which is also pretty darn close.
Boy, Harry's great, huh, Dan?
Oh, yeah. Why am I here?
Wait, you do Krusty.
There you go.
It's right on.
He's okay. Did Brad Bird animate this?
Brad laid this out. At that time, Brad was very protective of Krusty.
He fell in love with Krusty that first time.
Well, part of Krusty is a little bit of Brad, I think. But he was adamant that he was going to lay that out, and then, like 2 days before the animatic, I said, "Have you laid it out yet?" I'll have it tomorrow.
Well, when Dan does the Krusty voice, I can't be in the same room when we're recording because
Let's see, okay, right now. Get out of here.
Because I started laughing.
Wow, that's
I
almost
ruined the take.
almost as funny as Harry.
Please.
Terrific little bring back of Bonerland.
Yeah. Wow, I thought we got rid of him by this time.
Oh, yeah, this was one voice Harry hated doing. He was so glad that this character passed away.
Was it just hard on his throat?
He was hard on his throat, yeah.
Homer, I see you agree with my theory.
That was another big joke.
Well, often I think gravelly voices on our show, and in cartoons in general, sound kind of forced. And this sounded a little forced to me. But Krusty doesn't.
Yeah,
Wouldn't you, if you were designing Marvin Monroe now, too, wouldn't the beard line be fuller? Like the sort of thinness of the whiskers always looked a little first season to me.
So in the middle of our Twilight Zone parody, it's a parody of an old anti-smoking commercial.
Oh, yeah.
And then that church layout, I think, is taken from a Norman Rockwell painting.
The Four Freedoms?
Yeah.
Is that the same music from the anti-smoking
It's
commercial?
a knockoff.
It reminds me of the
Rip-off
public
I think
service.
it's Dave Brubeck.
Sometimes you can't find the person that owns the music, too.
No, it was that we found out who it was, that he was alive and wanted money.
Irving Berlin.
I hate that when they're alive.
Greedy.
You got it.
Hey, oh, thanks, boy.
I love you, Dad.
Now, George Meyer pointed out, you see this convention in movie and TVs a lot where someone has a nightmare and they sit straight up in bed. Try doing it once. It's almost impossible.
Everybody at home listening now, try it.
4 o'clock. A couple hours I have to get up and go to work. Gotta go to work. Go to work.
We actually abandoned these wraparound segments after a few years because the show has less airtime on Fox. The show air a few more commercials than they did at the beginning, and we really found we had no room to put this wraparound in as well as everything else.
Oh, in the meantime, sir, may I suggest a random firing just to throw the fear of God into them?
Very well.
Smithers was meaner back then, too. He was more on Burns' side, right?
He's been all over the map. He's been sympathetic, in Blood Feud. He was very nice at this point. And people ask if, is he gay or not? And I always say, to me, Smithers is a Burns-asexual, which is whatever Burns is, he loves. If Burns was a frog, he'd love frogs.
Go! Smithers, to the laboratory.
Here comes a real animation tour de force.
Oh, I love these beacons.
I remember we went nutty
really
when we first saw this, boy.
Beautiful.
That's so good.
Well, we really love those Universal horror pictures of the 30s. So, the best way we could tell how much we loved them would be to rip them off shamelessly.
How long till it's up and running, sir?
Keep your pants on, Smithers. First we need a human brain.
Hey, here's a good job, Dad. Oh, wait, you have to know how to operate an ultrasonic lithotripter.
How hard?
I looked that up later. That breaks up kidney stones.
Exactly. How hard can it be?
What job is that?
Grave digger.
So the cast list, I remember we called Willie Gravedigger Willie instead of Groundskeeper Willie.
Here's a Dan Castellaneta voice.
There
This
you
was
go.
one of the first Groundskeeper Willies. I remember they were so popular instantly at the table that we were like chanting, Willie, Willie.
Yeah, I think he was going to be Swedish or something.
Originally, it was
he
Swedish.
was nothing was the thing. I remember this so clearly where we got to that line and Dan said to Sam Simon, who I think was directing, he goes, "Who is this guy?" And Sam said, "Do an accent." And you tried Swedish and that didn't go, and then you did Scottish, and that's how the character was born.
And now, he is a big hero in Scotland. There were enormous articles in the Scottish press about it.
I don't know if he's
I
a
actually
hero.
threw my...
Although you did get a great response in Edinburgh when you went out on stage at the Edinburgh
But they said I
Festival.
was actually from Glasgow. Or they said my accent was from
Yeah, they're
somebody's...
very picky about
They
it.
got real picky.
Bag, sir. I think he's alive.
Ooh. Bed corpse. Bed corpse. Stop scaring Smithers. Satisfied?
Thank you, sir.
Now that's disturbing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that...
Except for that little sound effect kind of saved it.
Okay, here it comes.
Yeah, we should say, although we're credited with writing this segment, the line, "Look at me, I'm Davy Crockett," was Jay Cogan's, a writer on staff at the time. And after he pitched it, everybody laughed for about 20 minutes in the room and at the table when it was read.
Look at me, I'm Davy Crockett.
He actually was so tickled by it himself that when he stood up and he mimed the action of putting it on his head, and it's in the same room upstairs that we still use to write, and people were on the floor laughing so hard. That was an amazing time, and I think we disrupted work for at least a half hour.
Now we don't
from
go on that
one.
floor because I think it's very dirty. We've been in there for 50 years. It was very hard to get Jay to do any shtick, any sort of extra to pitch his jokes. He was a very quiet man. Won the comedy writing Emmy for Frasier several years later.
This is all fake computer animation, right?
Well, real computers cost money.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
It's beautifully done.
Now, I think we altered
That's
the
Harry
voice of
doing Johnny
Homer in
Carson.
post there. Put in
There's an echo on it.
extra.
We used to make fun of Johnny Carson.
Doesn't the script call him
constantly.
elderly
And-
talk show host?
Yeah.
Well, Dan would always look over to me. I sat next to you at the table, and you'd always say, like, Take that, Johnny. Or that'll show him. Someone who'd never done anything to us.
Well, Mike and I used to work for Carson, and actually in a year and a half we met him maybe 3 times. And it was kind of a tough job just because you had to do, we did 60 jokes a day, of which I'd use maybe 5 or 10. And we'd say, oh, yeah, it was a real grind. He'd throw out a lot of the jokes. And then he came and did the show, and he couldn't have been nicer. I still think he was one of
charming.
the most exciting guest stars we ever had, funny. And
told stories. That was great.
Yeah.
And it's one of 2 appearances he's made in the 11 years since he retired. It was that and
it
the
was
stupid
that and Sister
Teacher of the
Sister.
Year
Those
award.
were the 2.
Also, we make fun of him a lot. He went off the air about the time the show started.
And as for you, you clinking, clattering cacophony of collisionous cogs and camshafts, take that!
That little line there, colliginous cogs, was from The Wizard of Oz.
That's right.
Yes. I always liked where Burns couldn't outrun the slowly falling robot.
Leaking vital fluids, a slight headache, loss of appetite.
This is a convention on our show, too. A character getting fatally injured and describing his symptoms.
No, it's funny because we just recorded Jerry Lewis for the upcoming Halloween show. We have a kind of similar beat where he dies. It takes forever.
This staging was really tough, trying not to show Burns' head. So I'm afraid it's conspicuous by the fact that we're cutting off part of Homer's body there.
Nah, you'd never notice it.
So this, of course, is a takeoff of
the Incredible
Man with Two
Two-Headed
Heads.
Monster.
Right?
Yes.
Ray Milland and
Rosie Greer.
The
Black
poster
man's
said,
head on a white bigot's body.
Yeah, that's right. The white bigot's head on a Soul Brothers body.
Oh,
That's
that's
what
right.
the poster said.
It would really have been hard to do it the other way.
With a big exclamation point.
If you ever watch that movie, it's amazing. You feel so sorry for both of them.
I think more so for Ray Milland.
Yes, I do.
Now, this again was sort of built out of old animation.
Yeah.
I don't know
like the
what we
USA
had here.
Today
We
was from
didn't
Originally,
have an
Homer was
ending.
just arguing with Mr. Burns' head. I remember it was like a long argument.
Yeah, talking about the percale sheets had to go, the muslin.
Yeah, and then they just shortened it to one had to be one place and one had to be the other.
Very hard. Originally, we had an ending that was a parody of broadcast news, and nobody seemed to get that. Not even Jim Brooks, so...
So
this was our attempt to do a theremin, which sounds nothing like a theremin.
Yeah, the theremin being the unusual music instrument that's present in a lot of 50s science fiction movies.
It's just somebody whistling.
Probably Harry Shearer.
Yeah.
He's a genius.
Harry's doing that. Yeah. Harry can do a theremin or Johnny Carson.